There are moments in history when a simple fragment, a seemingly common object, threatens to dismantle everything we believe we know about the human past. And when this happens, academia hesitates. Experts become divided. The boundaries between myth and the archaeological record become fragile lines, ready to snap. The mystery you are about to encounter belongs exactly to this forbidden territory, a point where traditional chronology trembles, and where a newly revealed Sumerian piece of evidence raises a question archaeology dislikes hearing. What if we began our history much earlier than we imagined? For millennia, the Sumerians have been presented as a starting point, almost as if civilization had suddenly emerged in the fertile valley between the Tigris and Euphrates. Schools, books, documentaries, they all tell the same story that around 4000 BC, a mysterious people emerged with writing, advanced agriculture, astronomy, monumental architecture, and a complex social organization. But what few mention is the silent discomfort that accompanies this narrative. Everything appears too quickly. It evolves too fast. It consolidates too rapidly. And in the backrooms of archaeology, some researchers admit that the Sumerians seem to have started from the top, as if they had inherited something that did not originate there. This discomfort intensified in recent years when a piece previously considered irrelevant was re-examined, a small clay tablet discovered decades ago but filed away as an unrecognizable fragment. Technological advances allowed for the recovery of nearly erased inscriptions, and what once seemed like noise took shape. The partial text suggests an event prior to the Sumerian rise itself, something the scribes called the era before the counting, a period that, according to preliminary interpretation, describes an ancient people who had already mastered advanced techniques before what we now call the beginning of history. This reignited a debate many believed was buried. But before we explore this rupture, we need to understand the official version. According to traditional history, the Sumerians were the pioneers. They created the first known writing systems, organized city-states like Uruk and Lagash, and established a complex cosmology that influenced numerous later cultures. They left administrative records, epics, laws, myths, and astronomical observations that shaped subsequent Mesopotamian civilizations. The academic position is clear. They mark the beginning of documented history. Everything that supposedly came before belongs to the realm of archaeological assumptions, without concrete evidence. And it is exactly here that the present begins to question the past. When the tablet was reassessed, experts noticed unusual patterns, chronological references incompatible with the official timeline, descriptions of cities predating Uruk, mentions of masters of celestial calculation, suggesting that advanced astronomical practices existed before the formation of the first Sumerian cities. Although none of these claims is conclusive, the whole raises an uncomfortable question. Why did the Sumerians insist on recording events that, by traditional accounts, they could not have witnessed? This is not the only anomaly. In recent excavations in southern Iraq, ceramic fragments containing unknown symbols were found in geological layers older than expected. The marks do not match the early pictographic writing attributed to the Sumerians. Some researchers argue they could be proto-writing inscriptions from a precursor people, possibly absorbed or erased by the Sumerians themselves. Others claim they may represent just regional variations with no direct link. But in the silence of research rooms, some say this points to an earlier tradition that has always been hidden under layers of time and interpretation. There is also the controversy involving the so-called map of the 7 regions, an artifact that describes territories organized with surprising accuracy. Recent studies suggest its symbolism does not match the known borders of ancient Mesopotamia, but rather a broader geography, as if a prior people had already mapped areas not yet occupied by the classic Sumerian cities. Proponents of alternative theories argue this would indicate geographical and political knowledge far earlier than the accepted chronology. Critics, on the other hand, claim such interpretations extrapolate the evidence. And in the middle of this tension emerges what has always bothered independent scholars. Why, even in the face of so many disconnected pieces, does the narrative remain so rigid? Another anomaly arises from Sumerian traditions about antediluvian kingdoms. The royal lists, documents recording rulers since remote times, describe extremely long reigns attributed to kings before the Great Flood. Many interpret this as mythology or symbolic representation. However, some experts argue that these texts may preserve distorted memories of a much older period, when more complex social structures already existed but were destroyed by some catastrophic event. Interestingly, this pattern of an ancient kingdom destroyed by waters appears in myths from various cultures, from Mesopotamia to Egypt, from the Americas to Ashuas, describing an advanced civilization that disappeared abruptly. And here enters the new evidence that reignites all of this. The reanalyzed tablet mentions something translated as the bearers of knowledge, a title that does not appear in other known Sumerian texts. The passage, fragmented and difficult to interpret, suggests these individuals maintained records prior to the institutionalization of temples and cities. If this reading is correct, it would imply that part of Sumerian knowledge was not born there, but was preserved from a period that today does not appear in any history book. Even more unsettling, the inscription speaks of a return to what was lost, as if the scribes were trying to rescue a forgotten legacy. From these fissures, theories begin to emerge. Some are moderate. Survivors of older coastal cultures could have brought fragments of knowledge to the regions that would later become Sumerian centers. Others argued that writing and astronomy did not emerge from nothing, but evolved from much older traditions, preserved orally until a people recorded them. These hypotheses do not contradict history. They only expand its boundaries. But there are also bolder theories, suggesting that a prehistoric civilization, possibly destroyed at the end of the last ice age, may have left sparse traces that the Sumerians inherited without fully understanding. Although controversial, this idea explains why so many Middle Eastern myths speak of knowledge before time or before writing. On the other hand, critics claim everything can be interpreted within the traditional chronology. The unknown symbols could be local variations, the antediluvian king lists, mythical representations, and the re-evaluated tablet, merely a metaphorical record of an idealized past. However, the convergence of so many elements, coming from different contexts, makes the question persist. Are we facing interpretive exaggerations or real fragments of a history much older than we imagine? The truth, as always, hides among possibilities. Perhaps the new Sumerian evidence will not rewrite history, but will open enough gaps for new studies to reveal pieces we didn't know to look for before. Perhaps the Sumerians were not the beginning, but the visible echo of something that came before and that time tried to erase. Or perhaps all of this is just another example of how the past is capable of generating questions larger than the available answers. And now, after learning about these thin lines between myth and archaeology, it is up to you to decide. Are we facing a distant echo of a prior civilization, or merely humanity's fascination with filling gaps with mystery? Which version makes more sense to you?